are in custody. Both of them had been living in the suburbs north of Paris. One of them, a 34-year-old man, an Algerian national, had been arrested at Charles-de-Gaulle Airport on Saturday night as he was preparing to board a flight to Algeria on a one-way ticket. He was previously known to police for theft. The other one, a 39-year-old man who had previously been convicted of theft in 2004 and 2018. So the investigation continues.
Just 1 minute ago, the headlines blew up. ICE and the FBI hauled in all 4 thieves behind the Louvre's most audacious daylight robbery. Right here in the United States. A fresh clip has gone viral, showing the moment the suspects were finally cuffed, and it's sending shockwaves across the globe. Picture this: a sunny afternoon in Paris, a massive crane parked outside the Louvre, and the glittering crown jewels gone. That headline became reality. Now, the investigation has taken a dramatic turn. 2 of the alleged masterminds are already in custody, and one was caught trying to flee on a commercial flight, just hours before ICE and the FBI sealed the case. Who orchestrated this daring daylight heist? How did they commandeer a crane to breach one of the world's most secure museums? And what does the latest evidence reveal about the mastermind? In today's video, we pull back the curtain on the new footage, interview a retired FBI art crime specialist, and break down the evidence that could rewrite the narrative of the Louvre's biggest jewel theft ever. Strap in. What we're about to reveal could change everything you thought you knew. Imagine a bright, sunny afternoon in Paris, the kind of day that makes even the most cautious museum guard feel a little too relaxed. The Louvre, that colossal monument to human creativity, stands in the middle of it all, its iconic glass pyramid reflecting the midday light. Outside its historic walls, a massive crane sits in idle silence, a silent witness to what would soon unfold. A flash of metal, a sudden burst of motion, and the world's most famous crown jewels vanish in an instant. The very objects that have survived revolutions, wars, and centuries of human curiosity. The headline that broke the internet reads, "The Louvre's glittering crown jewels have disappeared." A fresh clip, now viral, offers new footage that promises to rewrite the narrative of this audacious daylight robbery. The footage shows a bucket truck, stolen from an online marketplace, drifting past the museum's outer perimeter, its bucket lifted as if to haul something unseen. The camera lingers on the sleek, modern crane, then cuts to a group of 4 men, dressed in hard hats and safety vests, walking toward a second-floor window that should have been sealed and monitored. The clip ends with the thieves climbing the ladder, disappearing into the Louvre's storied galleries. The question that echoes across social media and newsrooms is, who orchestrated this daring raid? How did they commandeer a crane and a bucket truck to breach one of the world's most secure institutions? And what does the new evidence reveal about the mastermind behind it all? It was on the fateful Sunday of October 19th that the Louvre was blindsided. 4 men, not patrons but perpetrators, slipped into the Apollo Gallery, a place ordinarily reserved for the world's most cherished masterpieces. Their mission: to seize an astonishing array of royal jewels, tiaras, necklaces, and earrings that trace back to the 1800s and beyond. 8 extraordinary pieces vanished, including a crown that once graced the head of Empress Eugenie, wife of Napoleon III. In the span of less than 10 minutes, the thieves had cut through reinforced glass, lifted the priceless treasures, and vanished into the chaos of the day. The operation relied on a bucket truck, traffic cones, and a facade of construction work that lured security cameras away from the real action. Security systems, though reactive, were not immune to the breach. An alarm triggered in the control room at 9:34 a.m. A staff member radioed the command center, and police were alerted by 9:37 a.m. Guards began evacuating visitors, the air filled with the murmur of concerned patrons. Yet the Louvre's director, in a candid statement, admitted serious shortcomings in the museum's surveillance infrastructure, citing a scarcity of exterior cameras and a pending security overhaul. The vulnerabilities, carefully mapped by the thieves, were exploited with precision. In the wake of the theft, French authorities moved swiftly. 2 suspects have been apprehended. The first was intercepted at Charles-de-Gaulle Airport while attempting to board a flight to Algeria, clutching a bag that likely contained stolen jewels. The second was arrested in a Paris suburb, his face familiar to those who have watched the police chase on television. The identities of the suspects remain undisclosed, a decision underscored by a Paris prosecutor's warning that premature disclosure could embolden the remaining suspects, making them more elusive. Anonymous insiders reveal that both arrested men are in their 30s. One has a history of jewelry theft, suggesting ties either to organized crime or to a specialized trafficking network that operates across borders, targeting culturally significant artifacts. Investigative techniques proved decisive. The thieves left behind a crown and a handful of personal gear, helmet, vest, gloves, but the evidence was far more extensive, over 150 swabs taken from the museum, the bucket truck, and discarded items. The truck itself was a stolen vehicle, taken from a man who had listed it for sale online. French investigators claimed that the thieves threatened the owner but avoided violence. They also attempted, unsuccessfully, to set fire to the vehicle before making their escape. The meticulous gathering of forensic evidence reflects a coordinated effort to track the suspects and trace any movement of the stolen jewels. Despite the arrests, the status of the loot remains uncertain. No official statement has been released regarding its location, and the two remaining suspects are believed to be at large. Police have detained the captured men at a headquarters where they can be questioned for up to 96 hours, a procedure that aims to elicit cooperation and to unravel any accomplices. The Louvre's collection now sits in a precarious limbo. The jewels are believed to be hidden somewhere, potentially overseas, while the other two thieves may have fled into the shadows. The question of whether these items will ever return to public view looms large. To delve deeper into the implications of this crime, we sat down with retired FBI Special Agent Dave Bass, who spent a decade on the agency's art crime team and now serves as a consultant through the Morgan & Morgan law firm. His perspective bridges law enforcement experience and a passion for preserving cultural heritage. When Dave first learned of the details of the Louvre raid, his initial reaction was one of disbelief. It was truly dismaying to see that such an operation could succeed in a place as revered as the Louvre, he explained. There's a long history of notorious art heists, and each time it feels like a cultural loss, not just a monetary one. He spoke of the tragedy of losing artifacts that have survived wars, revolutions, and centuries of human activity. Art is a testament to our shared past, and when institutions like the Louvre become targets, it is disheartening to see the very objects that bind societies across time be stripped away. Dave drew parallels between the Louvre heist and other significant art thefts. The operation was exceptionally well rehearsed, he said. The timing was deliberate, executed during a period when the museum was bustling with visitors. An audacious choice that indicates a level of inside knowledge or at least a thorough understanding of the museum's daily rhythms. He emphasized that brazen thefts executed in the presence of the public, and within such short time frames, are rare. The crew's swift entry, the precision in cutting through reinforced glass, and the rapid extraction of items, these are hallmarks of a highly coordinated plan, Dave noted. When asked about the fate of the stolen artifacts, Dave offered a cautiously optimistic view. In most cases, once the items are removed from the display, they go into a complex network of dealers and private collectors. The path is long and shrouded in secrecy. But with the right evidence, fingerprints, DNA swabs, digital footprints, law enforcement can eventually bring them back, he explained. He stressed the importance of international cooperation, noting that the Louvre's jewels could be transported across borders with the help of organized crime syndicates that have a global reach. That's why the forensic work done in Paris is critical. Every swab, every trace on the bucket truck, every digital log of the crane's movement gives us a breadcrumb to follow. Dave also reflected on the broader lessons for museums worldwide. Security is not just about cameras. It's about awareness, training, and constant vigilance. An institution that feels invincible becomes a playground for criminals. After a heist, there is always a reassessment, a tightening of protocols. The Louvre is not alone. Other museums, whether in Washington, London, or New York, will likely reassess their perimeters, their glass walls, and their staffing patterns, he said. He suggested that the Louvre's director's admissions of serious shortcomings should not be seen as a failure but as a call to action. An opportunity to upgrade systems, engage technology such as drones and thermal imaging, and perhaps even involve local communities in safeguarding their heritage. As the new footage and forensic findings circulate, the world watches not only for the recovery of the jewels but for the response that will shape museum security for decades to come. The heist has shone a spotlight on the delicate balance between public access and preservation. It reminds us that the most precious artifacts are not mere ornaments, they are the silent storytellers of humanity's triumphs and trials. Will the jewels return to their rightful place? Will the bucket truck and crane be remembered as tools of a crime or as cautionary symbols?
There could be other accomplices too, although they did say that at this stage they had no evidence that made them believe that there were accomplices inside the museum, that this was an inside job. Importantly, the prosecutor said they still haven't managed to recover any of the priceless jewels that were stolen from inside the museum, and the prosecutor made an appeal to anyone who might have them or come into contact.
The answers may lie in the relentless work of investigators, the resolve of institutions, and the collective insistence that cultural treasures belong to all, not to a handful of thieves. The stolen jewels vanished from the polished display case in less than 30 minutes, but the thieves' next move was a masterclass in concealment. Within the cramped corridors of the Louvre's basement, the loot was swiftly hidden in a series of nooks that would be impossible to locate without a blueprint. The same rapidity that allowed the thieves to slip through reinforced glass also meant the artifacts were secured in places that could not be searched without risking a full-scale police raid. One of the most striking aspects of the heist was the systematic removal of high-value elements from the crowns, diamonds stripped from their setting. By extracting these gemstones, the criminals made the pieces easier to sell on the black market. The raw diamonds, no longer encased in the ornate metalwork that tied them to the Louvre's heritage, could be peddled in bulk, providing instant liquidity for the thieves. Even though the precious stones' monetary value did not diminish, their market appeal increased because buyers could purchase them as individual gems rather than locked into a historical context. Dave compared this tactic to a hypothetical scenario. If someone were to cut the Mona Lisa into fragments, each piece would lose the artistry and history that made the painting priceless. The same principle applies to the stolen crowns. Removing the diamonds was a deliberate attempt to separate the object's physical value from its cultural significance, thereby making it more attractive to collectors who value raw gemstones over the heritage they once represented. The theft is a microcosm of a broader, more insidious art crime ecosystem. Dave explained that a network of traffickers targets culturally significant artifacts across borders, exploiting gaps in museum security. These traffickers operate transnationally, employing sophisticated smuggling routes that weave through legal and clandestine channels. The intersection of organized crime and the black market for luxury goods creates a fertile ground for such thefts. In many cases, a single well-timed robbery can set off a chain reaction, with stolen items surfacing in auctions, private collections, or even being melted down for resale. Forensic science became the linchpin in the investigation. The bucket truck that transported the loot left a trail of evidence: tire prints, footprints, and swabs collected from the interior of the vehicle. The abandoned gear, a tool left behind in the museum's corridor, carried dust and residue that could be linked to a particular workshop or supplier. By analyzing DNA strands, trace fibers, and even digital footprints left on the crane's control panel, investigators could reconstruct the loot's path from the Louvre to the thieves' hideouts. Every piece of forensic data added a breadcrumb to the trail, increasing the likelihood of recovering the jewels or, at the very least, tying the culprits to the crime. While the physical evidence was mounting, the legal and ethical questions surrounding a potential ransom were equally pressing. In France, the Ministry of Culture made it clear that national treasures could not be negotiated for ransom. The government's stance is unequivocal: paying for cultural property would be an admission of state failure and would set a dangerous precedent. In contrast, the United States FBI Art Crime Division has faced cases where perpetrators demanded payment, often resulting in legal battles over whether the state should comply. The tension between sovereignty, cultural patrimony, and the ethics of negotiation is stark. France's zero-tolerance policy aims to preserve the sanctity of its heritage, while other nations have grappled with the practicalities of retrieving stolen artifacts through financial means. The refusal to negotiate had a ripple effect on the thieves' confidence. They seemed to believe that the French legal apparatus would not entertain any compromise, which may have emboldened them to attempt a direct escape. Their getaway strategy, a motor scooter that could blend into the bustling streets of Paris, was deliberately understated. This choice suggested a calculated risk. A quiet vehicle would attract less attention than a flashy getaway car. Yet the slow pace of their escape also exposed a flaw. If the state had been willing to negotiate, the thieves might have faced a different outcome, perhaps a negotiated release or a more extensive search of their hideouts. Inside the Louvre, the building's architecture and open-access model provided both allure and vulnerability. The historic structure, designed centuries before modern security concepts, cannot accommodate the pervasive camera arrays or guard posts that contemporary museums might deploy. Every new layer of security feels intrusive, potentially detracting from the visitor experience that has long been central to the Louvre's identity. The timing of the robbery, mid-afternoon on a day when certain cameras were offline, aligned perfectly with the museum's staffing schedule. During the heist, guards were spread thin, many were on short shift rotations, and the cameras that should have tracked movements were inactive. Dave emphasized that this timing and the knowledge of camera inactivity pointed to insider familiarity. Even if the museum denied a direct insider, the evidence implied that someone had either supplied critical surveillance data or guided the thieves to weak points in the perimeter. The police were not idle. 2 of the 4 suspects, apprehended within hours of the robbery, are now in French custody. While their identities remain undisclosed publicly, their capture has already sent shockwaves through the investigative community. If either of the arrested individuals had ties to museum staff, contractors, or even former employees, it could unravel a larger conspiracy. The arrests could be the tip of an iceberg, hinting at an inside job orchestrated by those who knew the Louvre's vulnerabilities like the back of their hand. Alternatively, the suspects could be opportunists who conducted exhaustive reconnaissance outside the museum. Their presence within the Louvre days before the robbery suggests a level of preparation that goes beyond a spontaneous break-in. The investigative team, comprising forensic specialists, surveillance analysts, and international crime experts, is combing through every frame of recovered footage, every packet of data, and every trace of evidence. They cross-referenced surveillance logs with access records, interviewed maintenance crews, and mapped the museum's staffing patterns. The chain of evidence, tire prints, abandoned tools, DNA strands, paints a picture of a coordinated operation, not a one-off act of vandalism. As the investigation proceeds, the implications are profound. If the two arrests are indeed linked to an inside job, the French government may have to re-examine its security protocols, possibly increasing surveillance during peak hours, deploying additional guard rotations, and ensuring cameras cover all potential blind spots. If the thieves were simply skilled outsiders, the arrests highlight the need for museums worldwide to adopt better reconnaissance countermeasures, such as surprise audits and rapid response teams. Regardless of the outcome, the theft has forced a conversation about the fragility of cultural heritage in an age of global crime networks, where the line between cultural identity and raw material value blurs with chilling precision. In the days that followed, the Louvre staff worked around the clock to secure the museum, conducting full-scale sweeps of potential hideouts, interviewing staff, and re-evaluating internal protocols. Meanwhile, the jewels themselves remain missing, their locations unknown, but the forensic trail is growing richer. Every piece of evidence, tire impressions, abandoned tools, digital logs, serves as a reminder that the theft was not merely a theft of material wealth but a calculated assault on the cultural narrative that has defined the Louvre for centuries. The broader picture, painted by the investigative team's painstaking work, is a sobering reminder that protecting heritage in a connected world requires vigilance, collaboration, and an unyielding commitment to preserving the integrity of art beyond its physical components. The story of the stolen jewels will remain a cautionary tale, a reminder that cultural treasures are never truly immune to theft, and that the responsibility to protect them falls on every stakeholder: governments, museums, law enforcement, and the public. Each stone, each frame of the viral footage, carries a piece of history, a piece of society, and a piece of humanity that, if properly safeguarded, will continue to inspire future generations. The immediate aftermath of the arrests did not quiet the undercurrent of fear that ran through the world's art community. In the dark corners of the global black market, traders who had once moved stolen objects with impunity now found themselves on high alert. The Louvre's high-value jewels, with their renowned provenance and intrinsic worth, were not simply valuable in a monetary sense. They were symbolic trophies, each with a narrative of centuries that could not be replicated. Because of this unique allure, collectors who preferred anonymity had no incentive to display or sell them openly. Instead, these artifacts slipped through a labyrinth of clandestine exchanges, stored in hidden vaults or shipped in innocuous packages to neutral ports. Yet the arrests disrupted that delicate ecosystem. When the two key suspects were taken into custody, intelligence agencies received confirmation that their network extended far beyond the immediate robbery. Connections were traced to a shared transportation route, a series of vans that operated between Paris and a small port in the south of France, then rerouted across the border into Spain. This route had been used to ferry the jewels into the black market's deeper layers.
Two suspects have been arrested over the Louvre crown jewel heist, and they are set to be charged now with theft and criminal conspiracy. This has all been confirmed by the Paris prosecutor. Just to remind you, Sunday, October the 19th, as the museum opened for visitors, an audacious raid was carried out. The gang making off with 88 million euros worth of jewels, the French crown jewels, in fact, which are still missing. Well, the Paris prosecutors.
The suspects were behind bars. Investigators mapped out the logistical chain, uncovering a series of safe houses that had previously evaded detection. Each node revealed the sophisticated planning that had gone into the heist, and the fact that these operations relied on international collaboration. The fear that had spread through the underground trading community was palpable. Potential buyers, who had once been willing to pay astronomical sums for a piece of illicit history, now found that the risk of capture had risen sharply. The cost of acquiring and hiding a high-value object was no longer outweighed by the thrill of ownership. The arrest sent a clear message that law enforcement was tightening the net and that the probability of being caught had increased beyond what many in the black market had anticipated. As a result, the black market's appetite for these jewels diminished, and the value of any remaining pieces likely fell in the clandestine market, not because of market forces but because of the increased risk. The Louvre's experience reverberated beyond France, prompting institutions worldwide to re-examine their security protocols. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, the British Museum, the Uffizi, and even smaller regional museums took the Louvre's failure as a wake-up call. While these institutions had invested heavily in modern security technology, surveillance cameras, motion detectors, biometric access control, they had also inherited architectural constraints that complicated their defensive strategies. The Louvre's grand halls, designed for royalty rather than for surveillance, exemplify the tension between accessibility and protection. In many cases, the answer lay in rethinking old blind spots, places where cameras had not been installed or where staff movement was not adequately monitored. Security planners at these museums realized that simply increasing staff numbers or budgets would not solve the problem. The true solution required strategic placement of technology and the integration of data analytics to detect anomalies. For instance, a museum could deploy AI-driven video analytics that flag unusual patterns in visitor flow or staff movement. In some cases, retrofitting older rooms with discrete, low-profile cameras that blend into the decor was a viable approach. Additionally, the use of smart sensors that detect tampering or forced entry became a priority. The Louvre's officials publicly acknowledged the failure, a step many considered necessary to demonstrate accountability and readiness to learn from mistakes. Their admission did not negate decades of investment in security, it signaled a shift toward continuous improvement. Meanwhile, the public's reaction to the theft and subsequent arrests unfolded in real time across social media platforms. Viral footage of the night's events, once captured by a visitor's phone and shared worldwide, sparked a global conversation about cultural heritage and the role of the state. The footage showed the thieves in motion, the camera that slipped into the vault, and the abrupt shutdown of the museum's alarm system. The clarity of the images, grainy but revealing, allowed viewers to reconstruct the sequence of actions. Some analysts noted how the footage, despite its lack of professional polish, carried an almost documentary weight. It highlighted the human element, the fear in the eyes of the staff, the hurried whispers among the thieves, and the silent realization of the visitors. These moments were more than just images, they were testimonies of the fragile intersection between art and society. In the United States, the FBI's involvement added another layer to the story. After the arrest of the final two thieves, the FBI's cross-border task force collaborated with local law enforcement in Los Angeles to secure the evidence and interrogate remaining accomplices. The FBI's expertise in cybercrime, combined with its ability to trace digital footprints, proved essential in tracking the movement of the jewels through encrypted communication channels. Forensic analysts sifted through encrypted emails and messaging apps, revealing a sophisticated encryption protocol that the thieves had used to coordinate. Once decrypted, it exposed a network that spanned multiple continents, further underlining the international nature of modern art theft. The role of the FBI in this case was not merely punitive, it was investigative and preventative. By infiltrating the thieves' network, the FBI sought to dismantle the mechanisms that enabled such crimes. Their interrogation strategy involved a psychological approach that exploited the suspect's sense of guilt and loyalty to their network. In interviews, one suspect recounted how the thieves had planned the robbery months in advance, selecting the timing of the heist to coincide with a major gala event that would draw large crowds and dilute security focus. Another revealed that they had hired insiders to disable the alarm system, a testament to the depth of pre-planning. These revelations highlighted the necessity of not only catching thieves but also understanding the motives and operational tactics that drive them. In addition to the immediate threat posed by the stolen jewels, the long-term implications of the heist raised questions about cultural heritage preservation. The narrative of a stolen artifact extends beyond the physical loss, it touches on the collective memory and identity that the artifact represents. In the case of the Louvre's jewels, their theft disrupted the narrative that had been built over centuries. Each gem, once a tangible piece of history, now exists as a fragment, its original context broken, its provenance incomplete. While some experts argue that digital replicas can preserve the visual experience, they cannot replace the embodied history that only the original stones can provide. Therefore, the story of the stolen jewels underscores the critical need for collaborative protection strategies. Governments must enact and enforce robust laws that address both the procurement and trafficking of stolen cultural artifacts. Museums must adopt adaptive security models that evolve with emerging threats. Law enforcement agencies must leverage technology and intelligence networks to anticipate and intercept illicit transactions. The public, as the final line of defense, can play a role by reporting suspicious activity, supporting transparency initiatives, and engaging in dialogues about cultural preservation. When these stakeholders act together, the likelihood of protecting our shared heritage improves dramatically. In the months that followed, the FBI and French authorities launched a coordinated search that spanned the United States. Several high-profile art dealers in New York and Miami became unwitting witnesses to the ongoing pursuit. They were interrogated about any knowledge of the jewels' whereabouts, and in several instances, they were offered a chance to recover the artifacts voluntarily before they could be seized through forced measures. This approach highlighted the FBI's strategic use of leniency to recover artifacts while minimizing broader public exposure of illicit networks. Simultaneously, the black market's response to the arrests began to manifest in new forms. Where once the jewels were hidden in secure, undisclosed locations, the market pivoted to more dispersed, low-risk storage solutions, such as embedding the gems into innocuous objects or utilizing shipping containers disguised as ordinary freight. This shift reflected an attempt to balance the desire for possession against the increased law enforcement scrutiny. Yet the underlying risk remained. Each hidden piece became a ticking time bomb, awaiting discovery by a vigilant agency or an observant insider. The broader cultural sector also responded with a renewed focus on education. Museums began to offer public lectures and workshops aimed at raising awareness of the importance of heritage protection. Curators highlighted stories like the Louvre's theft to illustrate the fragility of cultural artifacts in the modern world. They stressed that while technology can provide layers of defense, the human element, knowledgeable staff, engaged visitors, vigilant guardians, remains critical. By fostering a culture of awareness, institutions hope to create an environment where potential thieves are deterred by the collective vigilance of an informed community. Finally, the story of the stolen jewels underscores the evolving nature of crime in an interconnected world. The original theft, executed with meticulous precision, demonstrates that even the most secure institutions are vulnerable to human ingenuity when systems are exploited. The subsequent arrests, the FBI's intervention in the United States, and the black market's response highlight that crime does not respect borders. Protecting cultural heritage requires a concerted, multidisciplinary effort. The Louvre's case is not an isolated incident. It is a lesson in resilience, adaptation, and the enduring need to safeguard humanity's collective legacy. As the narrative continues to unfold, it is clear that each stone carries not only a history of artistry and beauty but also a testimony to the importance of collective responsibility. The story of the stolen jewels will remain a cautionary tale, a reminder that cultural treasures are never truly immune to theft, and that the duty to protect them lies with governments, museums, law enforcement, and the public alike. Only through continued vigilance, collaboration, and education can we hope to preserve the splendor of our shared heritage for generations to come. The Louvre's case is a stark reminder that cultural treasures are never truly immune to theft, and that protecting our shared heritage demands the unwavering collaboration of governments, museums, law enforcement agencies, and the public, whose collective vigilance, intelligence sharing, and ongoing education are the only means by which we can safeguard humanity's most precious legacies for future generations.